You are now tuned in to the Dads Who Lift podcast with your host, Joel Staley. Today, I have a very special guest, someone I am super excited to pick his brain, the very knowledgeable Brad Pilon. What's going on, Brad?
Chilling. What about you?
Just hanging out. What's up in the Great White North?
Dude, yesterday was the beginning of like a summer. It really felt it. And it was just a tease. Today it's cold, miserable. Like the kids are still in like big thick hoodies and stuff like that. So I'm just waiting for summer. I want school to be done and I want summer to start. I'm gonna tell you.
You and me both.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to, I feel like I know a ton about you already, but do you want to, you have a pretty long and intricate story. Do you want to start from the beginning and kind of give people a introduction?
We could do like a quick Coles Notes. Always been interested in health, fitness, working out, bodybuilding, like since way too young. So in our day, there was a TV show, Incredible Hulk. Actually, with Lou Ferrigno playing the Hulk because we didn't have CGI back then. That was my sort of first taste, and they're like, holy crap, that's awesome. I've been into it ever since. I was working in your local supplement shop at like 13, 14. That parlayed into my university degree in nutrition. Went out from there, worked in supplements for, I don't even know, I think 7-8 years. Eventually ended up running an R&D department. That got me sort of the taste to get back into school. Went back and did my graduate work. Through a couple of weird sort of twists and turns, my graduate work ended up being on the metabolic effects of fasting. That turned into my book, Eat, Stop, Eat, and that's what I've been doing ever since, a sort of blatant self-promotion of Eat, Stop, Eat as a perpetual kind of one-hit wonder sort of thing.
You have a few books out though, right?
I do. We've looked into protein, we've looked into gut bacteria, we've looked into a couple training modalities, but Eat, Stop, Eat's the one that sort of everybody just remembers. They always remember your first work, right? It's kind of like acting. Once you played a certain role, that's the one you're always remembered for.
Well, anything to do with fasting too is just people find it super fascinating, which actually leads me into a question I had for you. Every time I do a video or a blog or anything like that on fasting, the overwhelming majority of people I can just tell are like, why is this guy not eating for 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's weird. Is that some sort of like eating disorder?
Yeah.
That can't be the norm. How do you address people that come to you with that type of stuff?
I don't typically. What I find with fasting is when you explain it kind of clearly is what it is, which is just a break from eating. People either get it or they don't, right? And so if they don't get it in this sort of internet world right now, they're not going to get talked into it because they've already made up their mind in that split second. They're just not in. And so it's not my job to kind of make them come around. I kind of wait for them to get interested. It's the people who stop and think, oh, I could do that. Or the ones who think, oh, you know what? I actually used to do that when I was a fitness model when we stopped eating at 6 every night. It's kind of the same thing, right? And then we go from there. So it appeals to a certain type of person, someone who likes the simplicity of it, gets it. Like right away is like, oh yeah, because if I'm not eating, I'm obviously losing weight. And I can easily do 24 hours. It might kind of suck a little bit, but it's better for me than dieting constantly. They get it. Or the people who are thinking, I've tried dieting over and over, but with my shift work or sales job lifestyle, I can't do it. I can't be a sales guy, go to a meeting where everybody else is having steak and beer and order a salad. I just can't. I need to make that sale. I need to bond with these people, So, if you're a guy or girl who works a job that sort of demands you to be social, it's really hard to always be dieting. Those are the people who really just sort of gravitate to it and get it. And the ones who don't are the ones who either just don't think they can fast or are kind of stuck in the health and fitness dogma of fasting. The minute they don't eat, they're going to lose all their muscle and just gain a ton of fat and it's over, right? And you can't really argue with them. You just kind of lead by example and show them it's not true eventually. But sometimes you just got to just nod your head at them and carry on.
Well, one thing I know you mentioned in your book, Eat, Stop, Eat, was how our hunter-gatherer ancestors would, go days and days without eating. And so for someone to think that 6 small meals a day is the way that we've adapted, it just doesn't quite make all that much sense, right?
Yeah, it's kind of anytime you try to apply the word normal to eating, what is normal? Because it's always this weird, and we actually covered this in South Beat, right? What is normal in Toronto is not normal in Paris, which is not normal in Texas, which is not normal in Japan, certainly. And so we're very micro niche in what we consider normal. So 6 meals a day is not really normal. And if you kind of look backwards, obviously not feasible. And then the idea that food's always available, or food needs to always be available, makes no sense, because that would suggest that at no point in human history have we ever been without food for more than a couple hours. Otherwise, we just would have all died off, right? And so when you kind of look at it logically there, you sort of assume, we're pretty resilient. We can probably handle this and go occasionally without food. And that was sort of the thought process behind it.
So from someone who grew up looking at Lou Ferrigno,
yeah,
wanting to be a huge muscular monster, I was kind of the same way for Rocky Balboa.
Nice.
He was my Hulk. But how does someone make that transition from trying to be a huge muscular beast to going a day or multiple days without eating, more of that lean, ripped, healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I think two parts. I think as you get older, you look at the gym as still something you love to do, but it's not how you define yourself. And one of the issues I ran into was the realization probably in my 30s that, the injuries you gather from weight training, they're cumulative. I mean, you recover, but you never recover to 100. You recover like 99.9, but that adds up. That little 0.1 over the years starts to add up. And I remember reading the blogs. This is back when blogging was cool, which might come back, who knows. But it was blogs of a bunch of powerlifters, some really, really sort of famous powerlifters. And guys I were in. They were that sort of Shrek with traps build, when you're just like, you're big, and that's awesome. And I want to copy you. So on ads, I want to copy what you do. And they were the lift heavy, lift hard, lift volume, just lift, right? Just make it your life, just lift. And I remember it was one blog post, and they started listing off all the major surgeries they've had. And it's like, wow. You're 45. What? These are like massive hip replacement, elbow replacement, taking chunks of bone out of spurs out of your elbow. And I thought, what? This part of the story you don't really hear very often, right? And then you start looking around at some of the top level bodybuilders, and you look at like spinal fusions and just the injuries they've had that literally cripple them in the way they live kind of at 50, 60, 70. And you have your exceptions like Arnold and guys like that, but you don't know what kind of pain they're in. And it really sort of made me think that you still want to be big and muscular because it's just cool, right? But maybe chasing it to the extent that I was chasing it wasn't the best thing for me, or at this time, or my family, right? Like it's something that you can kind of let go of. The other thing I noticed, and this is just 100% vanity, right, is there's lots of big dads, right? There's lots of guys who just, when they walk in, you're like, it takes up space. He's big. And you go to that dad pool party and you realize they're big, but they're just
I'm
big.
So glad you said that.
And I don't know, and I'm trying not to be mean about it. It's there's a certain way you can wear a golf shirt. I'm going to say specifically golf shirt, because all you dads know what I'm talking about. Right? Where the sleeves are tight and high, so the tricep hangs out a bit, and you just side profile in the right light in that one mirror in your house, you look awesome. Right? And it kind of covers this area down here. And then when the shirts come off, you realize you're just sort of hanging on to that tricep meat as the last frontier of mass that you have. But there's really nothing left. There's nothing truly athletic about it. There's nothing truly, you're just sort of big on top of heavy. And it didn't appeal to me anymore. And it was sort of another realization is that the getting giant was mostly to impress other guys. And it's part of a trying to belong. And I think that, again, once you got a family and you're a dad, you start to care a lot less what other people think of you. You're too busy dealing with your family and making sure everything there is awesome. So you kind of do what impresses you. And that's when it comes down to, okay, well, I want to train till I'm 80. Like, I would love to be able to train with my kids. I'd love to be able to train with my grandkids. In order to do that, I can't be broken, right? So if I'm feeling kind of broken now at 42, 43, what am I going to feel like at 60, 65? I'm chasing this, right? And then it was the other realization of, do I want to be good at 3 lifts, or do I just kind of want to be good at everything? And did I really care what Instagram thought of my squat or deadlift or shoulder press or whatever it was? And it was just a realization that, all of that can go away. And once that goes away, it opens up a lot of windows. And the other thing I realized was that, from my experience, and it's been well over a decade, fasting once or twice a week hasn't really affected my ability to build muscle if I want to build muscle. Certainly hasn't affected my ability to get stronger. But it has helped me stay lean during those seasons where it's impossible normally to stay lean. So I can stay lean through Christmas, leanish. I can stay lean through, Super Bowl season, through New Year's, through Easter, through all those times where as a dad, you got to eat, right? You can't be that guy on Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving or a kid's birthday where you're like, no, I'm good. I'm not eating anything, right? You eat, and then, a day or two later you fast. It just opens it up so much easier to be part of the party while still maintaining a look that makes you happy.
Definitely. And it's crazy how many dads or guys are out there that have the big arms, like you said. They're super strong. I mean, eating big and lifting heavy are the fun parts of this. I don't think anyone can dispute that.
Yeah.
But it gets to the point when you can't climb a flight of stairs without being out of breath. How athletic are you really? And
it opens up that window for, you see your arms and you got some traps, and so everything else is okay, and you're just going to ignore the 42-inch waist measurement. That's not a risk factor. And there's a certain selfishness to that, because if you have a family and you're committed to taking care of them for the next 20, 30 years, then, in having increased risk of heart attack and cardiovascular disease because you want to look really big, it's kind of silly. So that's kind of how I look at it too, is just sort of putting your priorities where they should be. I can't tell you where your priorities are supposed to be, but mine ended up there, is thinking I'd like to be, keep my waist circumference up to half my height, right? So I'm 5'10", that's 70, that's 35 inches. So as long as my waist is under 35 inches, I don't have to have abs. I just want to keep it where I know it's a marker for low risk of disease. Right? It's not easy, as opposed to letting my waist get up to 38, 39 inches because I'm chasing a 400-pound bench press as a 45-year-old. It just doesn't, I'm not doing this professionally. It doesn't make sense.
So for those of us who do want to have abs and muscles, but also stay somewhat lean while eating the majority of the foods we like to eat, what's the science say about fasting causing muscle loss? Because that's obviously the number one. You hear not eat for a day or two, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to wake up tomorrow looking like Pee Wee Herman or someone that absolutely has no muscles at all. How true is that?
Right. A little bit. And let me explain what I mean by that. Is you're always losing some muscle, right? There's always this flow of protein. Right now is being degraded from my bicep, as much as I hate it. It's being recirculated. Maybe I'm peeing it out. Maybe it's turning into my chest or my liver. It's always moving around. And you do lose a certain amount every single day. It actually works out to be roughly 60 grams, which is why we sort of set a minimum protein intake of around 60 grams. It's sort of a general idea of how much you lose in a day. So when you're fasting for, let's say, 24 hours, you're not turning anything off, so you're still losing roughly 60 grams. We're not talking pounds, we're like 60 grams. The issue is, we all weight train. So this number is actually a little bit lower for us, right? We're actually retaining some of that skeletal muscle. There's still protein loss going on. It's just not from the muscle. There's hormones, there's your gut lining, there's all sorts of other things in your body that are also protein. That little bit of loss is just, you're replacing that when you eat and train again. So it's that sort of weird paradox where anytime you lose weight, your friends will say, oh, Joel, you're just going to gain it all back when you stop dieting, which is just sort of weird going away. I know, that's why I'm not going to stop dieting and pig out, right? But if you lose muscle, you're like, well, you're going to lose muscle. And that's permanent, like for the rest of your life. You're never, ever going to gain back that muscle, which is just ridiculous, right? So there's a bit of a flow to it. But in terms of actual muscle growth, in terms of actually maintaining the level of muscularity that you have, 1 or 2 fasts a week is not going to compromise that. You want to fast for a month, and yeah, there's a lot of loss there that you're going to take some time to build back. But 24 hours, once or twice a week, something like that, it just is sort of within a normal ebb and flow of protein movement around your body. That doesn't necessarily mean skeletal muscle loss. It's just proteins moving around from all the protein structures in your body, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it definitely does. I've even, I'm going to word this all messed up and not even sure if it's 100% true, but I've heard if you're going to lose a little bit of muscle mass or some muscle fibers, chances are it's going to be the damaged, weakest of the muscle fibers, and that just gives way to, when you do build more muscle, for it to be replaced with new, healthier fibers.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to take apart the ones that are functional, right? In terms of a house cleaning approach, in terms of a turnover approach, you'd always go for the slightly dysfunctional ones or the damaged ones, that sort of thing. And the really important thing for people to remember is muscle turnover is really slow. I mean, if muscle turnover was fast, we'd all be jacked monsters, right? It turns over excruciatingly slow, which is why building muscle takes a long time. Your gut is different. The turnover in your gut, all your internal organs, is really quick. It's just cycling. And that's where a lot of the protein checking to make sure that your small intestine is properly organized and working properly. This part's not, get it out, pee out some of that protein, put something new. So a lot of that protein loss we're talking about, people hear protein, they think muscle, but that's not actually the case. A lot of that is hormones and enzymes from your saliva, from your gut. All that stuff is also being turned over at a much quicker rate. So I think we can worry a lot less about muscle as long as in the days when you're not fasting, you're training and you're eating.
I was going to ask you, so how do you feel about training on a fasted day?
I think that it's not necessary. I don't think there's a giant benefit to it. And if anything, it just shows a lack of flexibility in either your training schedule or your fasting. I mean, if you're fasting twice a week, arguably you should be able to train 4 or 5 times in that week and be able to be fed while training and fed right after. I don't mind training at the end of a fast. I don't notice any drop in strength or ability to do volume on hour 24 of a fast. No problem. And then I eat afterwards. I'm not sure I'm a giant fan of the whole training at, say, hour 12, where you haven't eaten for 12 hours and you have another 12 to go. But that seems like a really odd spot to train anyways. You arguably on most training fasting modalities should be sleeping at that time. So if we're talking hour 20, when you got to wait a couple more hours and eat, not a big deal, right? Or even arguably if you're talking the first couple hours and you've just had a big meal and you're training, not a big deal. I just don't think there's any giant benefit to doing it in the middle of a fast. So if you're trying to purposely do that for extra fat loss or something like that, I would avoid it and just keep the schedule flexible enough that you're training whenever you feel the best training. So if you feel the best training fasted, then go for it. If you feel the best training fed, do it then. I think the key is more how effective is your workout rather than when did you do it.
A lot of people will say fasting works, but that's only because it causes a deficit of calories, which there's obviously some truth to. But,
absolutely, yeah.
But is that really as simple as that, or does it go a little bit deeper than that?
It's really hard. Okay, so if the effect of fasting comes from the calorie restriction, because fasting in and of itself is calorie restriction, like to an absolute level, then it's really impossible to talk about the effects that fasting would have without calorie restriction, since you can't fast and not be calorie restricted during that time, right? So it's almost like a tautology where you're just spinning around. So people go, fasting's only effective because it's a form of calorie restriction. You're like, well, yes, right? So instead of focusing on the fasting, which is just absolute calorie restriction, I like to point out, are all other modalities of calorie restriction the same then, right? So if you're arguing that fasting is just calorie restriction, then you're also arguing that all forms of calorie restriction are exactly the same, will have the exact same effect. And that's where I think the argument breaks down. So if I were to tell you, Joel, I'm actually doing a diet where I eat zero protein. I'm calorie restricted. I kept my carbs and fats the same and brought my protein down to zero. So my calories are down. It's the same as a high protein diet, right? You're like, no, you're nut bars. That doesn't make sense. I'm like, okay, well, hold on. Now I'm only eating protein and fat, or I'm only eating protein and carb. Are those the same? Like, it breaks down to the point where every single form of calorie restriction causes some degree of weight loss. Obvious. But it's not weight loss we're after, right? We actually want fat loss. So we want whatever we can do to shift it so that the greatest amount of that weight being lost was from our body fat, right? I don't care about losing glycogen. I don't want to lose protein. I don't care about water loss. I'm just going to gain that back. I want to lose the stuff around my gut. And so what you're trying to do is optimize the calorie restriction for as much body fat loss as possible. And I believe that's what fasting does. So it's all calorie restriction if you're just looking at weight loss. If you're actually going, hey, but I'm really focusing in on fat loss here, that's where you may get an upper hand. And then when you start going down to all the autophagy or apoptosis or hormonal aspects of it, that's where it may also have its own benefits or maybe not be as effective as other diets, right? Because not everything's a benefit, but it's different. So long story short, it's a form of calorie restriction, but like all forms of calorie restrictions, it has its benefits and some of its negatives.
Do you ever get tired of just talking about fasting now that you're the fasting guru?
No, you know what? No, I like talking about fasting because no one in this house will talk about it with me. They would rather shove a pen through my eye than talk about it. But I do hate the arguing online about it when you're just sitting there going, this doesn't make sense. Or the arguments that it's just a form of calorie restriction and you're sitting there going, of course it is. You're not eating. What else would it be? And so instead of just going, this is a pretty simple way to handle this, where you take all a week's worth of dieting and you just cram it into 1 or 2 days a week, trying to really complicate the story instead of just really focusing on the simplicity of it. That's where I'm no longer interested in the discussion, right? The arguing over the what ifs and the possibilities of weird hormonal interactions, and you're sitting there going, okay, does it help people lose fat? Is it easy to do? Can do a subset of people who cannot diet every day, but can do this? Does it help them? Well, then let's run with this and let's look at it and then find out how to optimize it, how to explore it better, and how to help people optimize it for them, right? Like, so I'll get emails from people be like, okay, I cannot fast for 24 hours. It's impossible. I can't do it. I'm like, all right, that's cool. And they're like, I can fast for 22 hours though. I'm like, oh my God, do that, please, man. Like, it's those last 2 hours make it work for you, right? So if 22 is what you can do, and do 22. That's amazing. That's really, really good. Anything is better than nothing. Make it work, optimize, try to find a way to kind of fit it into your lifestyle. It does not have to be exactly as written in Eat Stop Eat or some other book, right? You can play with it. The fun part is when people go, should I do 24 hours once or twice a week, or should I do 16-8 every day? Like, those are the only two options possibly available. I'm like, you can do 16-8 3 times a week if you want, right? You can not do it on weekends if you want. There's no cheating because there's no actual rules to this, right? You can Eat Stop Eat where one fast is 24, one fast is 20. Just find the one that has the easiest flow for you, because that's what it's going to take, right? No one's losing all their weight overnight. You got to do this for 8, 12 weeks, maybe years. So find a way that you can do it for that long where it's not too intrusive on your lifestyle, and then you've got it. So that's the part I'm interested in, is help people sort of making it work for them.
So what's your typical fasting protocol look like these days?
Right now, it's getting close to summer, hopefully. Man, fingers crossed. So Sunday, Monday, there'll be a fast there just because there's nothing going on Sunday night. Sunday night is the panicked, oh my God, we got to get groceries for kids' lunches. I can't believe we forgot to get groceries over the weekend. Who's going? You or me? Crap, I'm going. It's 9 p.m. What's open? That kind of stuff. Don't have time. I don't have time for it. So fasting always fits in there. And then a Wednesday, Thursday fast, because Thursday is typically date night where the wife and I go out. So it kind of fits perfectly there, bookend it, and babysitter comes and we head out. So the fasting is not scheduled to the point where I'm scheduling things around the fast. The fasts are on Sunday night and Wednesday night because that's fitting the fast into my schedule. That'll change during the summer. Fasting's a bit more sporadic. We go sort of 2.5 hours north of Toronto, sort of cottage country in Ontario. We head up there for a couple weeks at a time. We have guests up. Right? The time when guests up is not where I'm sitting going, naughty, cool, you guys have some beer and barbecue. I'm just not eating right now. I'm there for the celebration, the social aspect of it. So I may not fast for 5-6 days when guests are up, and then I'll get back to my fasting routine, and then I may miss a couple fasts when guests are up again. I don't make up fast, so if I miss a couple, I don't fast for 4 days in a row or anything like that. I just sort of adjust the amount I eat on the non-fasting days. But it's never more than 2 times a week. I'm not a big fan of that much fasting. The goal is still to eat, right? We're using fasting as a way to allow us to eat the foods we like when we like to eat them. And I don't like the idea of overly extended fasts for me on a regular basis, because I like ending a fast where I'm deciding when it's done, not when the fast has decided it's finally broken me and I'm going to eat. Right? So I like the idea of having control, where I said I was going to start eating again today at 1. It's 1, I'm going to eat. As opposed to, oh my God, okay, I've made it 37.5 hours, I can't do it anymore, I got to grab a donut. And that sort of defeatist mentality, I like the positive reinforcement, where every fast I finish, it reminds me I can do this, no problem. Right? So it's positive reinforcement over and over and over that I got this. And then fasting once or twice a week, it breaks up my eating into 2 or 3 day chunks. And if I nail the really good 2 or 3 days of eating, positive reinforcement, I can do that. Whereas, a 12-hour diet is just this long, inevitable march to me failing, messing up somehow. And it's that negative reinforcement, I can't do it, right? I cannot go 12 weeks straight. I messed up and I had a pizza all to myself, or I had a box of donuts, and okay, I'm going to double down and be even stricter with myself for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to make up for it. Then you fail. Right? I don't like that. So my fasting schedule is just one of fitting it into my schedule, finishing the fast when I said I was going to finish the fast, positive reinforcement, keep going.
You said 2 things I want to expand on a little bit. Breaking your fast. Do you break your fast any certain specific way, or do you just go on with the next meal?
Oh, next meal. I eat whatever I would eat at that time. I've broken a fast with a protein shake. I've broken a fast with a pint of Guinness. Doesn't matter to me. Whatever I was going to eat at that time is what I eat.
Nice. And I lost my other question here. Oh, no, I got it. It's back. So have you ever found yourself after a fast, a lot of people will fast for too long and then they find themselves have that rubber band effect where then now they're binge eating on their eating days, and then they punish themselves with the fast. So they'll go 2 or 3 days without eating, and then they'll swing back and have to eat everything they can get their hands on. Have you ever found yourself with any of those symptoms at all?
Yeah,
or
totally. The key to fasting is that, for me, when the fast is done, it never happened, right? So there's no excuse to overeat. Brad, you just got to, eat responsibly here. And there's no cue to, okay, I'm fasting in an hour. Man, I gotta get a bunch of protein. I don't want to lose muscle. I don't do that either, right? So by erasing the fast as anything other than just a break from eating, it forces me to continue to be responsible with my eating after the fast, right? So I don't give myself permission to go and have 4 donuts. I'll still have 1, but not 4. You just have to pretend that the fast was just a thing. You just miss some meals. You're not going to make them up. You don't have an excuse to eat extra. You have to maintain a level of responsibility. You're not, most of us actually, for dads who lift, most of us aren't in our early 20s, most of us. So we don't have that luxury of nailing back a large pizza, 2 Subway sandwiches, and waking up leaner the next day. It doesn't happen. We're not 20, right? We've got to be a bit more responsible, because I like to think of it as, the damage we do now with overeating always has that chance to become permanent, right? And so a couple weeks of really bad eating, because I kind of got into a bad cycle of it, and then I do an old man move and tear my hamstring or something, and now I'm not training, and then that's what kind of ends you up 2 years later looking, going, holy cow, what happened, right? And at 45, 50, 60, marching back from that isn't the same as the rebound. I mean, you can be an 18-year-old, break your leg playing hockey, and in half a year be back playing hockey at a high level, right? I break my leg, and you need to take me back and shoot me. It's over. I'm not recovering from that. So same thing with overeating for me is the realization that it's just no matter what I let get into my head, you know, and I always do this, right? You can kind of explain away anything. So I'm bulking. You know, I just finished a fast. I'm trying to get abs, but I'm bulking. So I had a really good workout. So I'm going to try to up the calories. And you just have to stop and go, okay, dude, like the whole eating to get big thing again was cute when you're 18, 19, 20. You're not going to do anything now. If eating to get big worked in your 40s without drugs, most 40-year-olds would be jacked, right? Like it's just not a thing. So wipe that out of your head. Just be responsible. You fasted for a reason, which is because you'd like to stay lean. Fast didn't happen. No excuses now. Eat responsibly. It's a bit of a mental battle still, but you just got to realize you got to eat like an adult.
That's good to know I'm not the only one with that little Woody Allen voice that'll.
Oh, dude, yeah. The minute I have to finish a good workout, it's still, because it's ingrained in us, right? If you grew up in bodybuilding, the minute you finish a good workout, part of you still thinks that you should be, you know, 100 grams of protein, 2,000 calories, and you'd be good to go. And it's not the same, right? You don't get to eat the way you ate when you were a teenager because you're not a teenager, right? Just the same way you can't rock the clothes you wore when you were a teenager without looking ridiculous at 45. Things change, right? And you can't pretend like it's the same. So you have to ignore that voice because, man, it was fun. I can still remember how fun it was trying to bulk when you were like early 20s and just being like, I'm going to finish my protein shake, then I'm going to have the Haagen-Dazs, then I'm going to have the raw cookie dough, then we're going out for dinner, right? And that was like a normal thing because you knew you could always kind of bring it back, hopefully. But I just don't think we have that same luxury now. So I got to erase that voice and just remind myself what I'm working towards, which is a longevity, not as in living to 1,000, but longevity as in I'd like to be able to be happy with the way I look and the way I can move for as long as possible.
So it's pretty normal for someone to start fasting and then say they've been eating breakfast at 8 a.m. for the last 20 years. Come 9:30, 10 a.m. in the morning, they're starving only because that habit's so ingrained in them. What advice would you give someone in that position that wants to get into fasting because they know all the benefits, but they are just super hungry when they miss that first meal for the first few days?
That's an awesome question. Okay, so food and hunger is largely entrained. We literally, you could say we train our bodies or you could say our bodies train us, depending on how you look at it. And you can use your first couple fasts to really explore that. Why are you hungry right now? Like I used to always, during grad school, have breakfast, go to school. And I lived about a half hour away from the school. And I'm in Canada, so there's a Tim Hortons every 10 minutes, literally every 10 minutes on the way to school for a 40-minute drive. So I would stop at one of them, always coffee and a donut. I had breakfast like 20 minutes, at the most 20 minutes ago. And it was just that I was so used to stopping there, I always stopped there. So if I couldn't stop, let's say I was late for a lab or something like that, I was starving. And I was more than starving, I was pissed off, hangry, as you would say. But I wasn't hangry because I was hungry. I just ate. I was hangry because I had wanted food and I couldn't have the food I wanted. So it was like a bit of a spoiled brat thing. So you can use fasting to really explore, why am I hungry? Why do I want food? Instead of saying, why am I hungry? Why do I want food right now? And it's like, because whenever I see Joel, we go for beers, right? And so I'm seeing Joel tonight. We're supposed to have beers. It just sort of becomes these habits and these rituals. It's date night. We stay in, we watch Netflix, we have ice cream. So if you have date night and Netflix is on and someone forgot to buy the ice cream, it doesn't matter if you have cookies or brownies or whatever other snack, you wanted ice cream. And God damn it, you're going to go to the store and get ice cream. It's just a level of entrainment that you kind of have to untrain, right? You have to stop letting your body tell you, Brad, you're going to eat this just because you're used to eating this at this time. I know you're not hungry. In fact, you've overeaten today, but you still, come on, man. It's date night and you want ice cream. Get on it. So it's just that level of learning where you've been trained to eat and then deciding, is this a time I want to eat? Because sometimes you might be thinking, no, you know what? This is an important time to eat for me. Then don't fast, right? You don't fast on date night. That just gets you in trouble. You don't do that, right? There's important times during the day where, like, I'm a brunch type of guy. Love brunch, right? So I'm not going to start a fast at 10. This is a weird time for me. And it's a time I really enjoy eating. So I want to either be starting a fast slightly after or preparing to end a fast right around then. You can move it back and forth a half hour. It's not a big deal. But, you want to make sure that you are eating at the times you most enjoy eating and not just eating out of habit. For a lot of people, that means looking at your car and being like, why are you always eating in your car? Are you actually hungry? Or are you just, that's what you do in your car, right? You've gotten so used to when you stop to get gas, you buy Twizzlers, but that's just your thing. And you don't need those Twizzlers. They're not helping you. You don't even enjoy them because you're driving. You're not even paying attention. You have them. Maybe skip those. Whereas there's other meals where you really, really enjoy it and you're not skipping it. You're not missing it. You're going to work around it. So fasting actually allows you to kind of take a deep dive into that and figuring out when is it important to eat and when is it not.
The car and the couch, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's been times, I can remember times on the couch where you would go get food from the kitchen, you'd sit down to watch a show, you'd go to grab the food and it's gone. And you're legitimately going like, who, cat? Who ate my food? You realize you ate it, you didn't even enjoy it, you didn't even taste it, right? You ate it so quickly and sort of mindlessly. So those are the times where you got to stop and think, dude, you could have just had a glass of water, right? Like you're okay, right? So you're better off having a pint of beer at 150 calories or whatever the case may be than, the giant bag of chips you just pounded back without even knowing you did it. So just find something else to do.
Yeah, mindlessly is a good way to put that when you're in front of the Netflix and you're just.
Yeah, and they just disappear. And then you're actually searching the bowl. Like, what? I don't know where it went. Yeah.
So this will be my last fasting question. Is there anybody who shouldn't fast, whether it be due to like a medical condition or they're already too lean or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of medical conditions, right? So if you have a medical condition you're working with your doctor with, go ask him about fasting or her about fasting. And don't do the whole doctors don't know what they're talking about. They're pretty smart, right? If you disagree with what they're saying, give my book, I don't care, and just say, what do you think of this? If they're like, it's garbage, just go with it, right? Like, it's, again, lots of different ways for you to lose weight. You don't have to fast. If you have a medical condition, that's a priority. The next one, really good point by you, is people who are already really, really lean. If you're using fasting to maintain that leanness, good for you. That's awesome. If you're using the fasting because you just can't eat, maybe check on that, right? Like, it's cool to be lean all the time, but there's got to be some sort of balance to it. And so sometimes you just need to eat. Now, I think a lot of people who are lean could get away with less fasting in terms of the length or frequency. So if you're a really lean guy or girl, but you still want to fast once or twice a week, but maybe instead of 24, you do 20. Or maybe if you're big into like 16-8, but you're already really lean, maybe take weekends off, right? Just find a balance that works for you there. You don't always have to be fasting.
Awesome. That's really all I had for you. How can people listening both find more of your content and support what you're doing?
All right, so I am on Twitter. You guys are going to find a bit of a theme here. Twitter is @BradPilon. Instagram is Brad Pilon. My blog is bradpilon.com. There's a bit of narcissism here going on. It's always my name. The book is Eat, Stop, Eat. You can find it at eatstopeat.com or on Amazon. And generally, just go to the Googles and type in Brad Pilon. I should be the guy who shows up.
Brad, thanks again for being on the show, man. This has been awesome for me.
No worries, man. Great talking with you.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review for the podcast for your chance to win one of these awesome hats. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening.
Perfect. See you guys.